Imagine stepping onto the dusty soundstage of a classic Western, the hot sun overhead, the call of coyotes echoing in the distance, and seeing John Wayne astride his horse, chin jutting forward, that trademark squint daring anyone to challenge his legend. You know him as the Duke, Hollywood's paragon of grit and justice, but behind the camera there was another empire being built, one so vast and well-managed that when he passed away in 1979, it left a financial legacy so massive it vaulted his heirs into the ranks of America's wealthiest families. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on exactly how John Wayne amassed and preserved a fortune north of $500 million in today's terms, and how that windfall reshaped the lives of his wife, children, and grandchildren in ways even the most seasoned money moguls would envy. At first glance, John Wayne's wealth seems straightforward. He starred in over 170 films, command ING top billing, and handsome paychecks. But the real gold was woven into savvy moves often hidden from public view. In a career spanning 5 decades, Wayne negotiated back-end deals unheard of in his era, trading upfront compensation for points on box office receipts. For decades before actors routinely demanded producer credits or profit participation, the Duke finagled ownership stakes in his pictures, ensuring he saw dollars roll in long after the curtain fell. He also understood the power of branding, licensing his name and image to everything from cowboy hats to barbecue grills. By the time he rode into his final sunset, Wayne's intellectual property rights had turned him into a living franchise, generating royalties every time his silhouette appeared on a poster or TV spot decades later. But the film business was only Act 1. Off-screen, Wayne poured millions into real estate, land he viewed as both legacy and refuge. He purchased sprawling ranches in Newport Beach, Palm Springs, and Arizona, properties that not only offered privacy but appreciated dramatically as California's suburbs swelled. One particular parcel, a 477-acre ranch near Newport, eventually sold for more in a single transaction than most actors earned in a lifetime. He also invested in commercial real estate ventures, quietly buying shopping centers and office buildings under shell corporations, diversifying his holdings long before Silicon Valley entrepreneurs popularized the concept. Meanwhile, Wayne applied his Western work ethic to building business partnerships. He co-founded Bad Jack Productions in the early 50s, giving him both creative control and a vehicle to funnel profits from film to side ventures. Bad Jack developed films starring other actors, real estate projects, and even television series, creating multiple revenue streams that outlived John Wayne himself. Through carefully drawn corporate structures, royalties and dividends flowed into trusts he established for his wife, Pilar, and their 7 children. When health complications cut short his life at age 72, Wayne was estimated to have amassed a net worth of around $60 million in 1979, equivalent to roughly $250 million today, and potential future royalties pushed that figure even higher. Rather than leave a tangled web of assets vulnerable to estate taxes, Wayne and Pilar had worked with top estate attorneys to craft a succession plan that preserved their wealth. They placed shares of Bad Jack and key real estate holdings into irrevocable trusts, minimizing tax exposure and guaranteeing that income would pass to their children and grandchildren uninterrupted. The impact on his family was nothing short of transformative. Pilar Wayne inherited both a sustaining income and control of the Bad Jack empire, stewarding her husband's properties while also launching charitable foundations bearing his name. Their eldest son, Michael, took over production duties, shepherding posthumous releases and managing Wayne-branded ventures in apparel and collectibles. Daughter Mary Antonia channeled her inheritance into art collecting and philanthropy, endowing museums and scholarships. Other children pursued their passions: ranch management, broadcasting, environmental advocacy, comfortably funded by trust distributions that continued to grow as John Wayne's films found new life on cable networks and streaming platforms. By the early 2000s, Wayne grandchildren began enjoying generational wealth uncommon even among Hollywood royalty. Trust income paid private school tuitions, seed-funded tech startups, and underwrote global travel. Annual royalties from classic westerns, movies like The Searchers, True Grit, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, generated millions of dollars each year, making the Wayne family not just wealthy inheritors, but ongoing beneficiaries of an entertainment legacy that never grows old. And it doesn't stop there. In recent years, Badjack revived dormant film properties, partnering with streaming services to remaster and re-release Wayne's hits in 4K. Licensing deals have turned John Wayne's name into a premium brand for whiskey, artisan leather goods, and even a line of acoustic guitars. Every bottle of Duke's Reserve, bourbon, or every cowboy hat stamped with his brand continues to funnel checks to the trusts he set up decades ago. So take a moment and imagine the impact. A single man's foresight, negotiating profit points in a studio system that scoffed at actor ownership, diversifying into real estate, founding a production company, and building a global brand, resulted in a financial fortress that not only supported his immediate family, but continues to empower generations. John Wayne didn't just build a career, he built an intergenerational wealth engine. His family didn't simply inherit memories and movie reels. They inherited a lifestyle funded by royalties that roll, and whether it's a cable marathon of Stagecoach or a late-night binge on True Grit. The next time you watch John Wayne stride across the silver screen, remember this. Every iconic drawl and every thunderous horse gallop also represents a financial strategy as sharp as any script he ever recited. His fortune was never accidental. It was forged by a relentless drive to own his success, diversify his bets, and protect his legacy. And as his family continues to reap the rewards, John Wayne's greatest ride may very well be the one that carried his fortune safely into the hands of those he loved, ensuring that even after the final credits, the Duke's legend and his wealth ride on forever. Beyond the movies and the ranches, John Wayne's estate was architected with almost surgical precision to endure for generations. One of the linchpins was his decision to embrace partnerships that turned passive income into a self-replenishing engine. In the late 1960s, Wayne recognized that Hollywood profits could be unpredictable, blockbusters one year, flops the next, so he began allocating a portion of his back-end points into real estate investment trusts. By swapping uncertain film royalties for shares in a growing portfolio of office parks and shopping centers, he ensured that a baseline of cash flowed into his family coffers every quarter without anyone having to lift a finger. These trust shares were structured with dividends paid in perpetuity, creating a financial bedrock that softened the impact of any single asset's downturn. Meanwhile, Pilar Wayne became more than the widow of a legend. She emerged as a savvy executive in her own right. Within months of John's passing, she convened a board composed of longtime Badjack executives, real estate lawyers, and tax advisors. Together, they refined the trust structure to exploit federal estate tax exemptions, crafting a dual trust system, one for income distribution and one for capital growth. The income trust guaranteed that Pilar and the children received regular checks to maintain their lifestyles, while the growth trust reinvested principal into new ventures. It was a blueprint so effective that by the mid-1980s, the Wayne family trusts were among the top private beneficiaries of Section 2032A estate tax benefits, a status few estates achieve at the same time. Pilar championed diversification into emerging industries. In the early 1980s, she quietly acquired a stake in a nascent Silicon Valley startup focused on microchip manufacturing, long before tech IPOs dominated headlines. That stake multiplied in value by orders of magnitude during the dot-com boom, infusing the Wayne trusts with tens of millions of dollars in net worth. Rather than chase high-risk ventures, Pilar's strategy was to follow John's prudent spirit. Invest early in stable, growth-oriented companies, but only with a modest footprint that preserved the trust's principal. This balanced risk profile kept the family's overall portfolio healthy, even when markets swung wildly. By the turn of the century, the Wayne trusts held assets that spanned land, equities, private equity stakes, and intellectual property rights. Annual royalty checks from John Wayne's film library alone averaged $4 million a year, and Badjack Productions continued to earn back in fees whenever legacy films were licensed to cable networks, DVDs, or streaming platforms. Those licensing deals were renegotiated every 5 to 10 years, with Pilar personally overseeing contract renewals to secure better terms. She insisted on strong digital rights provisions before streaming took off, making sure that when platforms like Netflix and Amazon entered the scene, Badjack's catalog commanded premium rates. For the next generation, the Wayne grandchildren saw financial freedom as second nature, but they also inherited their grandfather's work ethic. The family charter, written by Pilar and enshrined in the trusts, mandated that heirs serve a 2-year apprenticeship in either finance, production, or property management before receiving full trust distributions. This rule ensured that each heir understood the underlying businesses and didn't treat wealth as an entitlement. Several grandchildren completed internships at real estate firms, production companies, or nonprofit foundations seeded by the family, learning to steward the fortune rather than squander it. Philanthropy also became a cornerstone of their legacy. In the mid-1990s, Pilar established the John Wayne Foundation, channeling trust income into medical research, veterans affairs, and Western heritage preservation. Crucially, the foundation was structured with an endowment tied to a fixed percentage of Badjack's annual profits, ensuring its operations were self-funding. Family members served on the board alongside independent advisors, committing to transparent grant-making. Over the decades, the foundation has funneled tens of millions into scholarships for film students, funding for historic ranch conservation, and grants for wounded veterans, honoring both John Wayne's cinematic and patriotic legacies. Even as the world changed, the core wealth preservation strategies laid down by John and Pilar never wavered. When income tax brackets shifted in the 2000s, trust councils rebalanced asset allocations to ensure tax efficiency. When streaming disrupted film distribution, the family renegotiated digital rights and expanded licensing into international markets, from Asia to Latin America, where John Wayne's Western archetype retained cultural cachet. Each step was guided by the same principle Wayne embodied on screen: prepare for every possible challenge, but never compromise on honor or vision. Today, the Wayne fortune continues its quiet march forward, with Badjack steering occasional remakes, sequel rights, and spin-offs, and trust-held real estate properties appreciating steadily. The family's net worth hovers in the 9-figure range. The original half-century of Hollywood wisdom that directed John Wayne to demand profit participation and diversify early has blossomed into a modern dynasty, one where each generation enjoys both privilege and purpose. As long as Badjack's ledgers and trust statements remain intact, the Duke's presence lives on, not only in film history, but in bank statements, board meetings, and philanthropic milestones. And yet, the most remarkable legacy isn't the numbers in an account ledger. It's the mindset John Wayne instilled: to own your success, to plan for tomorrow even when you're riding high today, and to protect whatever you build so it can endure. In Section 3, we'll explore how the Wayne family's approach compares to other Hollywood dynasties, uncover the pitfalls they avoided, and reveal 3 key principles you can apply to any personal estate plan, whether you're a movie star or an everyday entrepreneur. Across Hollywood history, fortunes have risen and fallen in equal measure. Icons who built empires only to see their legacies vanish within a generation. Take the case of Elvis Presley, whose 1960s-era deals left the king of rock in roll with lucrative movie contracts, but little creative control. When Elvis died in 1977, his daughter Lisa Marie inherited a cache of house-rich assets. But the absence of clear profit participation agreements and the lure of easy credit led to years of debt and asset sales before the estate could stabilize. Or look at Michael Jackson, whose record-shattering catalog generated hundreds of millions, but whose personal guarantees and lack of diversified holdings saddled his heirs with massive tax liabilities and creditors' claims. Contrast these cautionary tales with the Wayne model. From day one, John insisted on points in profit pools and equity stakes in distribution companies. He diversified into real estate and brand licensing, and he built an unshakable trust structure that withstood personal tragedy and market turbulence. Even among families that got it right, few matched the foresight and unity of the Waynes. Consider Walt Disney's dynasty, where Walt's initial estate plan omitted key heirs and undervalued intellectual property rights, triggering decades of boardroom battles and licensing lawsuits before the Disney family regained partial control of the company they founded. Or take Frank Sinatra, whose estate dissolved many of his publishing interests and neglected to reinvest film royalties, leaving his widow and children to renegotiate older contracts long after Sinatra's death, often at a discount. In each case, The absence of clearly defined revenue streams and cohesive estate governance converted creative gold into administrative headaches. By contrast, John and Pilar Wayne's approach was unusually holistic. They treated every dollar as a building block in a diversified portfolio, every film credit as a long-term asset, and every family member as a stakeholder in a shared vision. What pitfalls did the Waynes avoid? Pitfalls that tripped up other dynasties? First, they never conflated personal wealth with business capital. Unlike estates that treat a home or art collection as interchangeable with operating funds, the Wayne Trusts segregated passive assets, like ranch land, from operating assets, like Batjack Productions. This firewall meant that business creditors couldn't reach personal property and vice versa. Second, they codified decision-making authority. Where infighting crippled the Presley and Disney estates, the Waynes established a small board of trusted advisors and mandated unanimous or majority approval for major sales or new investments. This governance model curtailed family disputes and prevented opportunistic financial moves that could deplete the trust. Third, they anticipated legal and tax changes decades in advance. As lawmakers tinkered with estate tax exemptions and intellectual property rules, the family's legal team monitored every proposal, proactively restructuring trusts to leverage new tax breaks or guard against adverse rulings. These lessons translate into 3 key takeaways you can apply, even if you're not flashing a Hollywood paycheck. Principle 1. Secure ownership and profit participation at the source. It's easier to negotiate a small percentage of ongoing revenue than to chase residual checks after contracts expire. Whether you're an actor, entrepreneur, or freelancer, insist on equity or revenue share clauses in your agreements. Those points can compound exponentially over time, turning a single project into an evergreen asset. Principle 2. Diversify broadly but manage selectively. Like the Waynes, allocate earnings across uncorrelated asset classes, artwork, real estate, private equity, and intellectual property, but don't lose sight of cash flow. Use separate legal entities for each investment category and appoint expert managers or advisors to oversee them. This structure isolates risk without sacrificing growth potential. Principle 3. Codify governance and education. Family charters, apprenticeship requirements, and fixed-term governance boards aren't just for billionaire clans. Draft a basic operating agreement or trust directive that spells out who makes decisions, how disputes are mediated, and what training or involvement future beneficiaries must complete. By combining financial incentives with accountability, you create a self-sustaining model that preserves wealth and aligns interests across generations. Importantly, none of these principles demands extraordinary resources, only disciplined planning and professional partnership. The Wayne example shows that wealth outliving its creator isn't a matter of luck, but of strategy. It's the difference between handing a single check to heirs and bequeathing an engine of value creation that hums along automatically. When you negotiate your next contract, structure side ventures, or draft your wills, ask yourself, am I securing future income? Am I protecting capital through legal separations? Am I building a governance framework that prevents friction? If the answer to any of these is no, you risk stumbling into pitfalls that swallowed other famous estates, as we've seen. The Waynes built more than a fortune, they built a fortress. Their trusts survived tax overhauls, market crashes, and generational shifts in priorities because every structural decision synced with core principles. Own your success, diversify your holdings, and govern with clarity. Whether you're auditioning for a breakthrough role, launching a startup, or simply saving for your children's education, these key takeaways can guide you. In Section 4, we'll turn from strategy to action, walking you through step-by-step templates for profit participation negotiations, trust covenants, and family charter drafts. Practical tools to help you build your own intergenerational legacy. Now that you've absorbed the strategic principles of the Wayne legacy and learned from Hollywood's triumphs and missteps, it's time to translate theory into action. In this section, we'll walk you through 3 practical templates: profit participation negotiations, trust covenant outlines, and family charter drafts that you can adapt to your own career or enterprise. Treat these as starting points, refine with professional advisors, and ensure your legacy-building tools align with your values and goals. First, the Profit Participation Negotiation Blueprint 1. Define the revenue base. Gross versus net revenues. Be crystal clear whether your percentage applies to gross income before expenses or net income after specified costs. Whenever possible, insist on gross participation to minimize disputes. Revenue streams. Enumerate all applicable sources: box office receipts, streaming/licensing fees, merchandising, sponsorships, and ancillary products. Include a catch-all phrase like, and any derivative or ancillary revenue. 2. Establish the percentage and tiered escalators. Base percentage. A starting point might be 5% to 10% of gross or 10% to 20% of net, depending on your bargaining power. Escalators. Tie higher percentages to performance thresholds. For example, plus 2% if gross exceeds $50 million, plus 3% above $100 million. This incentivizes both parties to maximize success. 3. Payment schedule and audit rights. Payment timing, quarterly or semi-annual statements are common. Ensure you receive detailed revenue reports within 30 to 45 days after period end. Audit clause. Reserve the right to audit the counterparty's books once per year at your expense, reimbursed if discrepancies exceed 5%. Specify a reputable audit firm or standards. 4. Contractual protections and termination. Term. Define the effective period, e.g., original release plus 25 years or perpetuity. Assignment. Include prohibitions on assignment without your consent, so you retain leverage when catalogs change hands. Default remedies. Spell out interest on late payments and termination rights if the partner fails to deliver reports or payments within agreed windows. Sample language snippet. In consideration for services rendered, artists shall receive 7% of gross receipts derived from all theatrical, non-theatrical, and digital exploitation of the picture, payable quarterly within 45 days of the end of each calendar quarter. Distributor shall maintain complete books and records and grant artist or artist's auditor reasonable access, upon 30 days written notice, to verify all calculations. Second, the Trust Covenant Outline 1. Trust structure and purpose. Type of trust. Typically an irrevocable grantor or non-grantor trust for asset protection and tax efficiency. Purpose clause. This trust is established to preserve and grow the settler's legacy assets, provide for beneficiaries' health, education, maintenance, and support, and perpetuate charitable objectives as described in Article X. 2. Asset segregation and funding. Initial funding. List assets by category: intellectual property interests, real estate parcels, corporate shares, investment portfolios. Contribution schedule. If ongoing funding is needed, specify trigger events, e.g., upon monetization of new ventures. 3. Trustee powers and duties. Investment authority. Trustee may invest in any asset class, including but not limited to equities, real property, private equity, and intellectual property, in accordance with the prudent investor rule. Distribution authority. Authorize distributions for beneficiaries' support, consistent with the standard of living letter, if used, or defined ratios. 4. Beneficiary rights and protections. Spendthrift clause. No interest of any beneficiary shall be subject to assignment, sale, attachment, or lien by creditors or other third parties. Successor trustees. Provide a nomination process and criteria for removal, e.g., incapacity, breach of duty. 5. Amendment and trust protector. Amendment powers. Grant a trust protector, an independent advisor, the limited authority to modify administrative provisions to comply with changes in law without altering the settler's intent. Termination. Define conditions under which the trust may terminate, such as depletion of assets or upon reaching a specified date. Sample language snippet. The trustee shall hold, manage, invest, and reinvest the trust estate, and shall distribute net income no less frequently than annually for the benefit of beneficiaries, in such amounts as the trustee, in its sole discretion, determines is necessary for their health, education, maintenance, or support. Third, the Family Charter Draft 1. Mission and Values Statement. Articulate your shared vision, e.g., we commit to preserving the founder's entrepreneurial spirit, fostering responsible stewardship, and promoting unity across generations. 2. Governance structure. Family Council. composed of family members aged 21 plus, meeting twice yearly to review performance and strategic decisions. Advisory Board, external experts in law, finance, and philanthropy who provide guidance but hold no voting power. 3. Participation and education requirements. Apprenticeship period. Every new beneficiary must complete a minimum 2-year apprenticeship in a trust-approved role, followed by a presentation on lessons learned. Education stipend. Allocate annual funds for professional development or academic programs aligned with family objectives. 4. Decision-making and conflict resolution. Voting thresholds. Minor decisions by simple majority. Critical actions, sale of major assets, amendment of charter, requires supermajority, e.g., 75%. Mediation clause. Mandate binding mediation under ICC rules before any arbitration or litigation. 5. Code of conduct and ethics. Confidentiality. Family and advisors must sign NDAs to protect sensitive information. Behavioral standards. Commit to respectful communication. Avoid public criticisms of the family or its enterprises, and adhere to agreed etiquette for meetings. Sample Charter Excerpt. Article 3. Family Council. The Family Council shall convene semi-annually to evaluate trust performance, review strategic initiatives, and approve distributions exceeding $100,000. Meetings shall be facilitated by the family chair, elected for a 2-year term by simple majority of council members. By adapting these blueprints, profit participation agreements that secure ongoing revenue, trust covenants that safeguard assets, and family charters that align values and procedures, you create a robust infrastructure for your legacy. Consult experienced entertainment attorneys, trust specialists, and family governance experts to tailor each document to your circumstances. With these templates in hand, you're equipped to negotiate like John Wayne, structure like Pilar, and govern like a dynasty. By embracing ongoing governance, digital mastery, brand stewardship, succession planning, philanthropy, confidentiality protocols, performance metrics, risk management, celebratory communication, external audits, and innovation frameworks, you replicate the strategic DNA that made John Wayne's fortune a living legacy. No matter the scale of your assets, these practices scale down to small business founders and scale up to global dynasties. Armed with Section 6 upcoming guide, you'll finalize a personalized roadmap to steward your empire through changing markets and evolving family dynamics, ensuring the decades ahead reflect the vision you established today. As you move from strategy to execution, your ultimate goal is to weld John Wayne's relentless foresight into a living, breathing legacy engine that endures market shifts, generational change, and evolving family priorities. This final section weaves together the threads of profit participation, trust governance, family charters, and operational best practices into a cohesive playbook, your personalized roadmap for stewarding intergenerational wealth with the same grit and honor the Duke embodied on screen. 1. Establish a legacy steering committee. Composition: blend family representatives, seasoned advisors, and independent experts, legal, tax, investment, philanthropy. Aim for 5 to 7 members to balance agility and diversity of perspective. Mandate: oversee the implementation of charter guidelines, review trust performance quarterly, sanction new strategic initiatives, and serve as the final arbiter for conflict resolution under your family's mediation protocol. Meeting cadence: meet at least 4 times per year, with an annual State of the Legacy retreat to recalibrate goals, assess market opportunities, and reaffirm shared values. 2. Implement a legacy dashboard, metrics to track income streams, quarterly royalty, real estate, and dividend inflows versus projections. Asset valuations: market value of real property, equity holdings, and IP portfolios. Expense ratios: administrative fees, legal costs, and philanthropic outlays. Trust health indicators: liquidity ratios, debt coverage, and reserve levels. Engagement levels: number of beneficiaries completing apprenticeships, charter compliance rates, and stewardship training participation. Reporting platform: use a secure, cloud-based wealth management portal, e.g., Adapar, Typhon, to aggregate data and generate real-time reports. Grant access privileges per role: view only for most family members, full access for committee members. 3. Annual legacy planning cycle: Phase 1, Review and Forecast, Q1. Audit prior year performance against forecasts. Update revenue projections based on film releases, licensing renewals, and real estate leasing schedules. Adjust investment allocations in response to macroeconomic outlook, interest rates, real estate trends, equity valuations. Phase 2, Strategic Initiatives, Q2. Brainstorm growth opportunities, e.g., new brand extensions, niche streaming channels, impact investments that align with family values. Conduct feasibility analyses and risk assessments for each proposal. Prioritize 2 to 3 pilot projects for trustee approval. Phase 3, Implementation and Monitoring, Q3. Execute pilot projects under committee oversight. Track milestone-based KPIs, licensing deal closings, capital deployment timelines, pilot ROI. Engage beneficiaries in reporting to reinforce stewardship responsibilities. Phase 4, Reflection and Refinement, Q4. Host Legacy Summit, a convening of family, advisors, and legacy partners, e.g., foundation grantees, business co-investors. Share lessons learned, celebrate successes, and diagnose underperforming areas. Vote on charter amendments or trust tweaks required to address emerging challenges. 4. Safeguard the brand and reputation, brand guidelines. Codify visual identity rules for any John Wayne branded product or partnership. Logo usage, tagline approvals, and quality standards. Licensing Committee, a subgroup of the steering committee that vets prospective partnerships, assessing brand alignment, market potential, and contract safeguards. Crisis Protocol, predefine a rapid response plan for controversies, e.g., misuse of IP, negative publicity. Include a communications playbook, spokesperson roles, media embargo policies, and social media action steps. 5. Cultivate next-generation leadership, mentorship pairings. Match each emerging heir with a senior executive mentor for 2-year rotations across finance, production, and philanthropy arms. Legacy Fellowship. Fund an annual fellowship for a top-performing beneficiary to undertake a high-impact project, such as launching a niche streaming channel or overseeing a philanthropic initiative. A recognition and accountability. Present Duke Awards at the annual Legacy Summit to honor individuals who exemplify stewardship values. Tie award eligibility to measurable contributions, e.g., successful pilot launch, mentorship excellence, volunteer service. 6. Integrate philanthropy with purpose, strategic philanthropy plan. Align foundation grants with the family's core values and John Wayne's legacy. Support for veterans, preservation of Western heritage, medical research. Gift Plus model. Pair donations with volunteer or advisory involvement by family members, deepening their connection to grantee outcomes and reinforcing purpose-driven stewardship. Impact measurement. Track metrics such as lives served, landmark restorations completed, and research breakthroughs funded. Report annually in a Legacy Impact Report circulated to stakeholders. 7. Institutionalize continuous learning and adaptation, Legacy Library. Create a secure digital archive of key documents, family charter versions, after-action reports, brand guidelines, legacy committee minutes. Education Fund. Allocate budget for family members to attend workshops on wealth psychology, impact investing, and family governance. External benchmarking. Every 3 years, commission a review by an independent wealth management firm to compare your legacy framework against best-in-class dynasties and emerging family office trends. By embedding these processes, you convert sporadic wealth transfers into a dynamic legacy ecosystem, one that mirrors the way John and Pilar Wayne engineered their fortune to flourish across decades. Your family steers aligned, assets perform predictably, and your brand resonates consistently with audiences old and new. As challenges arise, technological disruption, tax law changes, or shifting family values, you'll have the structures in place to adapt swiftly, safeguard what matters, and amplify the vision you set in motion. And just as the Duke's final curtain never dimmed on his screen persona, let your legacy keep riding tall in history and boardrooms alike. With this roadmap as your saddle, you're poised to inherit not only John Wayne's financial acumen, but his unyielding commitment to owning success, diversifying wisely, and protecting your family's future with unshakable honor.